Welcome to the deep dive. It feels like every single day the pace of AI development just accelerates, doesn't it?
It really does. It's less future tech now and more just part of daily life.
Exactly, often in ways we don't even quite grasp yet. So our mission today is to really dive deep into a stack of recent, pretty critical sources. We're talking AI's impact on, your personal privacy, policy stuff, even the economy.
Yeah, there's a lot happening.
Right. And we want to pull out the most important bits, give you, our listener, a kind of shortcut, get you well-informed, maybe with some surprising facts, some clear insights. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with something really personal.
Yeah.
Your phone's camera roll.
Mm-hmm.
Picture this. You go to make a news story on Facebook, right? And boom, a pop-up.
Ah, the pop-ups.
And this one's asking for access to photos you haven't even shared, like photos just sitting on your phone.
Photos you haven't posted anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It asks if you'll opt into something called cloud processing for creative suggestions. So the stated purpose is, to help generate ideas, collages, recaps, maybe AI restyling, photo themes, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And Facebook says it uploads media from your camera roll to its cloud on an ongoing basis, using things like time, location, themes.
Evolving basis, huh?
Yeah. And here's the bit they emphasize. Only you can see the suggestions, and the media isn't used for ad targeting.
Okay, so that's their line. But what's fascinating here is, well, while the pop-up sounds sort of benign,
Yeah.
tapping allow means you're agreeing to Meta's full AI terms of service.
Ah, the fine print.
Exactly. And that's where it gets, well, let's say, more involved. These terms explicitly state that your media and your facial features can be analyzed by AI.
Facial features. Just for photo suggestions.
That's what the terms allow. They also say they'll use the date, the presence of people, objects in your photos, all to craft these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like a classic case of that slippery slope you hear about with tech features.
Right.
It's often not super clear what you're really signing up for. Meta's AI terms, the specific bit on images, says, once shared, you agree that Meta will analyze those images, including facial features, using AI.
Okay.
And it goes on. This processing allows us to offer innovative new features, including the ability to summarize image contents, modify images, and generate new content based on the image. And it doesn't stop there. The AI terms also give Meta's AI the right to retain and use any personal information shared to personalize AI outputs.
Retain and use.
And they even mention that human review of interactions, including potentially conversations, might happen.
Human review. So someone could be looking at this stuff.
The terms allow for it.
So, okay, on one hand, Meta's saying, hey, only you see this, no ads. But then the terms talk facial features, human review, retaining, and using personal info. That feels like a pretty big jump from just creative suggestions. What's the biggest unanswered question here for users?
Well, the central question, and the source we looked at points this out, is do those photos you allow for cloud processing count as personal information under those really broad AI terms?
Because the terms don't clearly define it.
Exactly. They define personal information loosely as prompts, feedback, or other content, which leaves a whole lot of room for interpretation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So while they might say not for ad targeting in this test, the language around retention, usage for AI outputs, plus the facial feature analysis, it definitely opens the door to a much wider scope of data use than just, making a photo collage.
And this isn't just a what if. Our sources mentioned a real example. A Reddit user found Facebook took an old photo from their camera roll, a photo they hadn't shared on Facebook before, and Meta AI automatically turned it into an anime picture.
Wow. Pulled right from the camera roll.
Yep. Now, if you're listening and wondering where this setting is, you can find it. It's under Facebook Settings, then Preferences, and look for camera roll sharing suggestions. There are two toggles in there. One is about suggesting photos when you're just browsing. But the second one, that's the one for enabling or disabling this cloud processing.
Right. And it's worth noting this isn't brand new out of the blue. Screenshots of this pop-up were seen earlier this year.
Ah, okay.
And Meta has help docs for it on both iOS and Android. The actual AI terms themselves, they've been enforceable since June 23rd, 2024. But comparing them to older versions, it's tricky. Meta doesn't keep a public archive. And thinking bigger picture, this camera roll access, it goes way beyond what Meta announced before about training AI on publicly shared stuff, right? Like posts and comments on Facebook and Instagram.
Right, I remember that.
For that public data training, EU users, for example, had until May 27th, 2025 to opt out. This cloud processing thing, it's about data you haven't even chosen to post yet.
So what's Meta saying officially about this feature? Well, their spokesperson, Maria Cubeda, gave a statement. She clarifies it's a test. It's opt-in only. Suggestions are only shown to you unless you actively share them.
Okay, standard lines.
And crucially, she says, camera roll media may be used to improve these suggestions, but are not used to improve AI models in this test.
Ah, in this test.
That part really jumps out, doesn't it? Makes you wonder what the plan is after the test.
Definitely raises questions.
And this test, for now, is running in the US and Canada. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's shift gears a bit. From your personal camera roll to Meta's broader AI strategy, because there's some pretty significant news potentially brewing.
Okay.
Meta is reportedly in talks to acquire a voice cloning startup. It's called Play AI.
Voice cloning. Interesting.
Yeah, Play AI basically lets anyone clone different voices. You could use it for AI-powered stuff like customer service bots, for example.
Right.
They've raised about $23.5 million total. Investors include 500 Global, Kindred Ventures, Race Capital, Soma Capital. So, they're established.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of acquisition fits perfectly with Meta's goal of really fleshing out its consumer-facing AI features.
Makes sense.
They already let creators build chatbots on their platforms, right? And they just added video editing to their Meta AI chatbot.
Yeah.
So bringing in Play AI, that would integrate advanced audio features into that whole creative suite.
So cloning voices within Facebook or Instagram tools.
Potentially. It really makes you think how quickly this kind of tech could show up in your digital life, maybe in the next app update,
Wow. Okay, let's pivot again. From corporate moves to global regulatory stuff and privacy concerns, because there's a big case developing.
All right.
A German data protection official, Mike Camp, she's Berlin's Commissioner for Data Protection and Freedom of Information. She has officially reported a Chinese AI app called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek?
Yeah, reported them to Apple and Google.
And the issue?
The core allegation is that the app is illegally transferring user information to China.
Ah, the data transfer issue. Camp's reasoning is pretty direct. She says DeepSeek just didn't provide convincing evidence that user data was protected according to EU law, like GDPR. And she stated, quite bluntly actually, Chinese authorities have far-reaching access rights to personal data within the sphere of influence of Chinese companies. That's the crux of it.
So it's about potential government access.
Exactly. Camp's office asked DeepSeek to comply or, pull the app from Germany. They refused.
They refused?
Yep. So now Apple and Google are reviewing her report, which kind of puts the pressure on them regarding the app stores.
And this isn't the first time for DeepSeek?
No, it isn't. Italy actually banned the app earlier this year for very similar data protection worries.
Okay.
And EU consumer privacy groups, they keep hammering this point. DeepSeek is made in China, operates from China, and its own privacy policy says user info and data is stored there in its home country.
That really puts Apple and Google in a tough spot, doesn't it? If DeepSeek won't comply, and officials like Camp have these clear concerns about data access by, foreign governments, what can regulators actually do when a company is based somewhere else entirely? Seems like a constant struggle.
It absolutely is. This case just highlights that fundamental challenge,
Yeah.
Data sovereignty versus global apps.
Yep.
When one country's laws give authorities really broad access to data, as Chinese law does, it creates a genuine dilemma for places like the EU with strict rules like GDPR.
True.
This raises an important question. What does this actually mean for your data security when you use apps from different countries? And should the App Store giants, Apple and Google, be the ones deciding these cross-border data flow issues?
Heavy questions.
Definitely.
Okay, let's transition one more time to the big picture, macro level stuff.
Yeah.
The economic impacts of AI. This is obviously sparking huge debate right now. Hear the promise, right? Generative AI, creating new careers, economic growth. People talk about the solo unicorn startup run by one person and AI. But then you also have these widespread fears about AI causing massive job losses. And banks, analysts, they're all predicting big GDP boosts. It's kind of all over the place.
It is. A lot of competing narratives.
So against that backdrop, Anthropic, one of the major AI players.
Yeah, Claude AI.
Right. They just launched a new economic futures program. This is last Friday, June 27th, 2025. And its stated purpose is basically to fund research on how AI impacts the job market, the global economy, and also to develop policy ideas to help us prepare for these big shifts.
Interesting.
Sarah Heck, she's Anthropic's head of policy programs, put it like this. Everybody's asking questions about what are the economic impacts of AI, both positive and negative. It's really important to root these conversations in evidence and not have predetermined outcomes or views on what's going to happen.
Which is, well, it's interesting context, especially when you remember Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei predicted back in May.
Oh yeah? What was that?
He suggested AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment maybe as high as 20% in the next 1 to 5 years.
20%. Wow. So their CEO says that, and now they're launching a program to research it.
It seems so. And when Sarah Heck was asked about mitigating job loss, her response was more cautious. She said the shifts will be both good and bad.
Okay.
And the main goal right now is just to figure out what is actually happening. If it is major job loss, she said, they'll bring people together to discuss mitigation. If it's huge GDP growth, policymakers will talk about that. She really stressed it won't be a monolith.
So data first, then solutions.
Kind of. And this program, it builds on something they already had. Their economic index, launched back in February.
Right.
That index actually open sources aggregated, anonymized data to track AI's effects on labor and the economy, which is, quite different from competitors who often keep that data very private.
So the company whose leader predicted massive job cuts is now funding research to see if it's true and how to deal with it. It's pragmatic, I guess, but also pretty fascinating. And the program itself has 3 main parts, right?
Yeah.
First, grants. Up to $50,000 for empirical research on AI's economic impacts. Labor, productivity, value creation, etc. They want good data within about 6 months, not necessarily waiting for peer review.
Quick turnaround.
Second, forums. Symposia in D.C. and Europe this fall to develop and evaluate policy ideas for these economic impacts. Heck mentioned they want ideas beyond just labor, like new workflows, new kinds of jobs, which schools to be valuable, even fiscal policy. She said they really want to open the aperture.
Broad scope.
And third, building data sets. More tools to actually track AI's economic use and impact over time.
It's worth just quickly comparing that to Anthropic's big rival, OpenAI.
Okay.
OpenAI put out their own economic blueprint back in January that focused more on public AI adoption, building infrastructure, creating these AI economic zones.
Right, like the Stargate project.
Exactly, which might create construction jobs, sure, but their blueprint doesn't really tackle potential AI job loss head-on like Anthropic's program aims to. It talks more about government roles in training, AI literacy, getting universities more compute access.
Different angle.
Different angle. And, zooming out a bit, Anthropic's program is part of this maybe slow but growing trend. Some tech companies trying to position themselves as part of the solution to the disruption they're actually creating.
Right, whether it's for PR or genuine concern. Or both.
Or both, yeah. Like Lyft starting a forum for its human drivers as it brings in more robo-taxis. It's a similar kind of move, trying to manage the transition.
So what does this all mean? It's definitely interesting seeing these big players take such different tacks on dealing with the societal fallout of their own tech.
Yeah.
Makes you think about their motivations and what role they see for themselves, doesn't it?
Wow. We've covered a lot today. From the super personal, like what Meta might be doing with your unshared camera roll photos, to the global stage with data privacy and DeepSeek in Germany and China. And then right up to the huge societal questions about jobs and the economy with Anthropic's new program. And ultimately, looking at all these different stories from your phone's privacy settings to global economics, it really shows that the deep dive into AI isn't just about the tech itself, is it?
No, not at all.
It's about how we redefine digital rights, data control, economic fairness, all in this incredibly connected, fast-changing world. Understanding these pieces helps you navigate what's coming.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. As AI keeps weaving itself into everything, blurring these lines between our personal data and the tech, between innovation and disruption, raising these massive questions about jobs, economies. What fundamental human values, or maybe what regulatory principles, do you think will become the most critical battlegrounds for the next wave of AI policy and development? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.